Hello and welcome to a long overdue Stitch Create Love sewing tutorial. My name is Lindsay and this is my channel Stitch Create Love, where I produce sewing tutorials, and I also have a regular podcast where I share my crafty endeavours. You can find me on Instagram at Stitch Create Love, where you'll get quite regular updates from me, and if you do make something from any of my tutorials, please do use the hashtag Stitch Create Love, because I follow that and I can see what you've been up to and have a look what you've been doing with all of my tutorials. I do have an Etsy shop where you can support this channel and the tutorials. There's kits available in there to run alongside some of the tutorials and a few other bits and pieces like stitch markers and things like that. If you would like to support my channel and the tutorials but you don't want to purchase something from the Etsy shop, then I've popped a link to my Ko-fi account in the box below. But of course you don't have to do any of those things. You are more than welcome to watch free of charge at your leisure as many times as you would like. So it has been a long time since I have done one of these. We have been in lockdown here in the UK, but that is now easing. Hopefully, fingers crossed, things are going back to a new kind of normal and the tutorials are resuming. So what are we going to be doing today? Today's tutorial is going to show you all the steps to make Florence. Florence is a lovely bee that I have designed using English paper piecing techniques. If I show you her off the backing fabric, then you can see that this is what you will end up with, and I've still got the papers in there as well. So we're going to go all through all the steps that you need to make Florence today. I'm going to show you how to applique her onto some backing fabric, and I'm going to show you how to do all of the hand embroidery stitches that you will need to know to make her antennae. For the tutorial, I am going to use one of the Florence kits that are or possibly were available in my Etsy shop, depending on when you're watching this. But you don't have to have the kit to follow along this tutorial. If you've got papers and fabrics and things yourself at home, then you can follow along like that as well. But I will be using a kit to do the tutorial, and all of the bits and bobs that I use are available in the kit, apart from your needle, your thread and your scissors. And I will talk to you a little bit more about those as we go through the tutorial. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, then you can leave them in the comment box below. If you enjoy watching the tutorial, then please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and then you can stay tuned for future tutorials and other updates. Before I take you over and show you all of the things that you're going to need to make Florence, I thought I'd just do a very basic intro on what is English paper piecing. English paper piecing is essentially patchwork. It's using shapes that fit together, very often hexagons, but other shapes, triangles, squares, all sorts of other shapes that you can use as well. And you piece them together to make a design. And obviously in this tutorial we're going to do a bee, but you can do flowers, you can do butterflies, there's loads and loads of different things that you can do. The reason it's called English paper piecing is because these here are papers, and you use those to give your fabric some structure whilst you're piecing together. This is all done by hand. Because it is hand sewing, it is a much slower process than machine sewing. It's really mindful. I find it really restful. I find it really helps to de-stress me. It's also really portable, so you can pick it up and put it down again very easily and just do a little bit here and there throughout your day, or whenever you're able to throughout your busy life. There are lots and lots of different shapes used in English paper piecing. You'll often find hexagons used, but you can also have triangles, you can have other shapes. All shapes that kind of tessellate or fit nicely together, basically, is what you can use. You can also pretty much use any size of shape that you want, so you don't need an awful lot of fabric to do English paper piecing. And originally I think it was designed as a way to use up scrap fabric, so if you've got old clothing, if you've got old baby clothes, it might be a nice idea to do something with those. If you've got old bedding, other old kind of fabrics that are past their best around the home, or if you've just got scraps left over from other projects, then you can make something beautiful out of what would ordinarily be considered as waste. So now that we've had a very kind of brief introduction to what English paper piecing is, I'm going to take you over and I'm going to show you all of the things that you need to make your Florence. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make one complete Florence bee, and I'm then going to show you how to applique her onto some backing fabric and embroider her antennae. I'm going to be using one of the kits from my Etsy shop, and most of what you will need comes in the kit, but if you don't have the kit at home, then you can easily gather together these supplies if you wish to do so. So in order to make one Florence bee, you're going to need your papers. You're going to need 4 hexagons, and you're going to need 1 triangle per Florence, and you can see that this is the arrangement in which they're going to fit together. So you're going to have 1 for her head, 1 for her body, one for her little tail, and then you're going to have one each for her wings. And that is how they're going to fit together when we stitch them together eventually. Obviously you won't have this great big gap here. If you're not using a kit, you can use any size of hexagon and triangle that you would like. Obviously they all just need to be the same size. The hexagons that you will get in the kit are all 1 inch across each side, and the triangles that you will get in the kit are 1 inch across the bottom, and they're also 1 inch in height. They're not equilateral triangles, i.e. equal on all sides. They're isosceles triangles, so it just means that you've got longer sides than you have a base. It just gives a more elongated look to your triangle for Florence's tail. To go with your hexagons and your triangles, if I just move those over to one side, you're also going to need your fabrics. So you're going to need 1 hexagon for Florence's head. That needs pressing, doesn't it? If you get a kit, they'll all be pressed before they come to you. You're going to need 1 for her body. You're going to need 1 triangle for her tail, and then you're also going to need some hexagons for her wings. Depending on which kit you've got, if you are using a kit, then the arrangement of your prints might be slightly different. Now, it is entirely up to you whether you want to swap these around, and you could have this as her body and this is her head here, and you can see that you can do it the other way around as well, which is what I've decided to do there. It's personal preference. I prefer this way, but you have got enough in the kit to swap those around if you wish to do so. You're also going to need one of these, which comes in your kit. This is a wonder clip, and we're going to use this to help us clip our fabrics to our papers whilst we're attaching them together prior to piecing them together. You're also going to need some backing fabric to attach or applique your Florence onto. Now, if you've bought a kit, you will get some backing fabric. This is the backing fabric that goes with these prints, but you might get some canvas fabric in your kit. And your backing fabric in your kit measures 6.5 inches across by 8 inches down, but you can applique Florence onto anything that you want to. The reason I have used this size of hexagon paper and fabric is because this is a really nice size to applique onto a cushion. If you wanted to, you could applique it onto a blanket or any other kind of fabric item in your home. But if you want to use the backing fabric in the kit, then you can do. You're also going to need some embroidery thread. Again, this does come in your kit. This is stranded cotton embroidery thread, and you're going to use that to embroider Florence's antennae. And then if I just move these out of the way, the other things that you are going to need are some scissors, which are not included in your kit because you've probably already got those. Just some, I've got some small scissors here for snipping threads, but any scissors will do. You're also going to need a needle. Now, the reason that the needle has not been included in the kit is if I show you my needle case, there are so many different needles that you can choose from, and I think it's personal preference which needle you prefer to use. Personally, for all my hand sewing, I favour one of these. This is a quilting needle. As you can see, it's quite long, it's also quite fine, but sturdy enough that it's not just going to get bent out of shape. It's also got a reasonably good sized eye. Some needles have a very, very small eye and they're very, very difficult to thread. You can see it's also got a slightly different colour on the tip there. As I say, it's a quilting needle. I bought these a long time ago from one of the quilting shows that I went to. I just prefer that because it's longer and I just think it's slightly easier on my hands. But you can use any kind of hand sewing needle that you wish, whichever you prefer. I mean, you can see here I've got lots of different ones with different sized eyes. You've got something like this, which has got a very, very small eye, very, very difficult to thread. So yeah, you can use whatever hand sewing needle you wish. And then you're also going to need some thread to piece your hexagons and your triangles together. Again, you might want to use a particular type of thread. The only thing you'll need to make sure is that it's a strong thread. So I would recommend a polyester thread or a cotton polyester mix so that you've got lots of strength in there to hold your pieces together. So that's all the equipment that we're going to need. So now I'm going to start talking you through the steps that you need to take to construct your Florence bee. The last thing that it is quite handy to have actually is a pin cushion of some description, because as you're working, it's really handy if you've just got somewhere to pop your needle. So it's not essential, but if you do have a pin cushion, then you might want to have it at the side of you whilst you're doing this. Okay, step one then in constructing our Florence is to attach our fabric hexagons to our paper hexagons. There are a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can attach them to your paper hexagons and sew your tacking stitch through all of your layers, so your back layer of your fabric, your paper, and your front layer of your fabric. I don't tend to use that way because then you have to snip them out at the end and pull them out, and it's just an extra job that I don't really want to do. You can also use a glue pen, which I know are very, very popular at the moment, and they do add a certain amount of speed to the equation, but once you get into doing it the way that I'm going to show you, that does become quite quick as well. The reason that I'm not showing you how to use a glue pen in this tutorial is because it's an extra bit of equipment that I don't think you really need if you're a beginner and you're just trying English paper piecing. And if you are a seasoned English paper piecer, get my teeth in, then you've probably already got one of those and know how to use it anyway. It is literally just as simple as popping a line of glue on your fabric and paper and folding your fabric over. The way that I'm going to show you how to do it is tacking your fabric onto your papers, just stitching through the back layer of the fabric, and then you don't have to clip those out at the end. So that's the way that I'm going to show you how to do this first of all today. It doesn't really matter which piece of fabric you start with. I'll show you how to do the hexagons first, and then I'll show you how to do the triangle, because that's just a little bit more fiddly and there's a couple more steps involved. So I'm just going to move those extra papers out of the way first, and in order to attach your fabric to your paper, you're going to need your little wonder clip to help you as well. So you're going to want to get your fabric hexagon and place it with the right side of the fabric, so the pretty side of the fabric, facing down onto your surface. Then you're going to get your paper hexagon and you're going to sit it in the middle of your fabric hexagon. Now, as I said at the start, these are 1-inch hexagons. If you're cutting these out yourself, then you want to be cutting hexagons which are 1.5 inches across, because then you've got a 1/4 inch overlap around the side, which helps us with attaching the fabric to the papers. So that's the size of hexagons that you're going to need. So your hexagon right in the middle. You don't need to be measuring here whether you've got 1/4 inch, you can do it by eye. So you're going to fold one of your sides of fabric over your paper. It doesn't matter which one you start with. And once you've done that, you're going to get your wonder clip and you're going to clip it to your paper. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to use a tacking stitch to attach it around all of the sides here. Before I do that, I just want to say I am left-handed. So I am going to start here to the right of my wonder clip, and I'm going to go round this way. If you are right-handed, you are going to find it easier to start here on the left side of your wonder clip and go round that way. Okay, so if you're left-handed, you're probably going to want to go round this way. And if you're right-handed, you're probably going to want to go round that way. To tack our fabric to our paper, you're going to just use a single length of thread. It needs to be long enough to go all of the way round your hexagon. So I haven't measured how long that is there, but you can get an idea of how long it is. So I've threaded it through my needle, because there's no point you watching me threading up a needle. What you're going to want to do to start with is you're going to want to tie a knot in the end of your fabric. And the way to do that is to get the end of your thread between your finger and thumb, wrap it round so that it crosses over, and put your thumb there where that crosses. Now, you want more than a single knot, but if you wrap it round your finger multiple times to get your double, triple, whatever you want knot, then it's not going to pull nicely. You're going to end up with loops stuck there. So the way to tie a double or triple knot, and I'm going to go for a triple knot here, is to feed your needle, if you can just see, underneath your thread there as many times as you want. So I'm going to do it once and pull it. I'm going to do it twice and pull it again. And then I'm going to do it 3 times and I'm going to pull it again. Disclaimer here, obviously be careful what you're doing with your needle. Then I'm going to slide my finger out and I'm just going to pull it tight and you've got a nice knot there. That will then be thick enough to not come back through your fabric. And we don't need this extra bit here, this tail, so I'll just get the scissors and I will snip it off. I'm going to do that out of shot because it's just going to be blurry, and then I'll bring it back in and show you. Okay, so there we are. You can see I've trimmed that off. Now, to attach, I'm just going to pop that back in there. To attach the fabric to the paper, you need to move your clip over slightly to the other side that you're not starting from. So I'm just going to make sure that that's all nice and secure. So I'm going to start to the right of my clip. So I'm just going to pop my clip right on the left-hand edge there. Then what you're going to do is, you've got this part folded here already. You're going to fold over your next edge, remembering of course that if you're right-handed, you'll have put your clip here and you'll be working from this side. You're going to fold this over here like that and use your thumb to hold that there like that, and you can feel underneath you've got a little bit more fabric there, and that is where we're going to pinch it between our finger and thumb. Then you're going to get your needle and thread, and you're going to put your needle through the bottom layer here, not through the paper, just through the fabric, and bring it back up through there, through the top layer. So if I just pull that through, that's one movement of your needle. Then you're going to do exactly the same thing again. So you're going to go underneath into the bottom layer and through the top layer. You've actually got two layers there on the top. And then you're going to pull it through. And that's that part done. That's going to stay in now because you've gone over the stitch twice. That's going to stay in. That's what we call a tacking stitch. If you were putting tailor's tacks in, that's how you would do that as well. So now we're going to carry on moving round. We're going to leave our clip in place. We're going to turn our hexagon, and we are going to do exactly the same thing again. So make sure that everything is nice and taut and straight here. Then we're going to fold over this piece, and then we're going to repeat exactly what we've already done. So we're going to go in through the bottom layer and then in through the top layer. You don't have to be particularly neat or straight because you're not going to see this when you've finished. I'm just going to tauten that up again because it's moved slightly. So I've gone in once and now I'm going to go in twice, like that. And just move your thread over so that it doesn't get wrapped around your clip. And now the needle's come unthreaded. These things happen, and pull it nice and tight. So now you've done your second stitch. Okay, I just took a pause there to rethread my needle. Okay, so now that we've done the second point, we're going to turn it round again, and we're just going to keep on repeating the process until we've gone all the way round. So again, folding it over, pinching it here with our finger and thumb, and then we're going to go in through the bottom, up through the top once, and we're going to do the same thing again, in through the bottom, pull it tight, in through the bottom, up through the top twice. And you will find that your thread gets caught around the edges as you're doing it. That's fine, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. And then I've done that side, so now I'm going to turn it again, and then I'm going to make sure everything is nice and taut. I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to pinch here with my finger and thumb, and I'm going to go in through the bottom and up through the top and pull it tight, and then in through the bottom and up through the top. I'm saying pull it tight, but don't pull it too tight because otherwise you'll end up with your shape being folded. It just needs to be pulled tight enough for it to sit flat. I'm going to turn it round again. I'm going to keep my clip in. I'm going to fold down this corner, ignoring this part because we're just concentrating on the corner at the moment. I'm going to go in through the bottom, up through the top once, and pull it tight, and in through the bottom and up through the top again, and pull it. I'm going to try and stop saying pull it tight and say pull it straight. Might be a bit better for you. Okay, I'm going to turn again, and now I've come back round to where the clip is. I'm going to take the clip off. The clip being in place will have creased that fabric nicely there, and now you're just going to fold this part over here. It wants to go anyway, and this time you're going through your top layer first and coming out through your bottom layer just because of the way that it's folded. So we're going to go through the top layer and the bottom layer once, and then through the bottom layer, through the top layer and the bottom layer twice, and pull it straight. And then turn it for the last time, and although you've already tacked this, we don't have a straight thread here because this is where we started. To make sure it's nice and secure, I like to do this bit again. So we're going to go through the bottom and through the top, like that. And I think I've got it hooked there, yeah, so just pull it straight and then through the bottom and through the top again. And that is your first paper hexagon attached. Now to finish off, we're going to do a knot, and the way that I do that is I just go back into my fabric here. You see where I've just gone in through a little bit of the fabric to make a loop with my thread. So here is my loop with my thread. I'm just going to pull the needle through. You can see my loop there. I just want to pull the needle through here. There we go, so you've got your loop. And then I'm going to put my needle through that loop there. Okay, and then I'm going to pull it tight to give me a knot, and then I'm going to snip my thread. So I'm just going to pop that down and get the scissors and snip my thread. And that is our first fabric hexagon attached to our paper hexagon. I will do another one to show you, and I'll see if I can do it a little bit quicker for you, and then I might speed it up as well. Okay, so I've got my next hexagon ready to attach here. I've got my needle threaded up. I'm going to make that knot again for you in the end of my thread. So I'm going to go to the very end of my thread. I'm going to wrap it around my finger. I'm going to pinch at the cross there. And then I'm going to feed my needle through once, through twice, through 3 times, and then I'm going to take the loop off my finger and I'm going to pull it tight, and I'm going to snip the end of my thread. You'll end up with bits of thread all over your workspace, don't worry about it. I'm just going to pop that in my pin cushion for a minute. I've got my next hexagon right side down. I've got my paper hexagon in the middle. I'm going to fold over one of my edges. I'm just going to do the top edge because it's easier. Because I'm left-handed, I'm going to place my wonder clip on the left of that side. If you're right-handed, you'll want to place it over here. Then I'm going to get my needle and thread. I'm going to pick up my hexagon. I'm going to fold this edge over. I'm going to pinch with my finger and thumb where I can feel the bump underneath, and then I'm going to go in through the bottom and up, out through the top. And I'm going to pull it all the way through to my knot. Then I'm going to do exactly the same again. In through the bottom, up through the top. And I'm just trying to get to that thread from around my clip. There we go. Okay, so I've done one bit. I'm going to turn it. I'm just going to move the thread around here. Turn it, fold it, pinch it, in through the bottom and up through the top. In through the bottom and up through the top. Once you get a bit further round, the clip stops being in the way. But again, this is just a really nice, slow, mindful, restful way of sewing. So you just take your time. So I'm turning it again, I'm pinching it here. Then I'm going in through the bottom and up through the top. My needle's come unthreaded again. Let's see if I can thread it on camera. That would be good, wouldn't it? Here we go. It's probably all gone very blurry for you. Alison from Oopsie Daisy Crochet, if you're watching, do you remember the trouble we had threading our needles whilst we were doing our quilting project at school? That's when I was teaching at school. Alison and I weren't at school together. yeah. When you're working with a class of 30 9 and 10-year-olds and they're all learning to hand sew, the amount of times their needle comes unthreaded and then you have to try and thread it back up again. Thank goodness we had a pack of needle threaders that day. Okay, so I'm just carrying on the same steps all the way around, in through the bottom, up through the top. This fabric that I'm using here is the brushed cotton that comes in the kit for Florence's head or middle of her body, should you wish. It's really nice and fluffy, nice and tactile. I've come back round to the clip now, so I'm going to take the clip off and pop it down, and I'm just going to have that already folded there. So this time I'm going through the top first and out through the bottom. So in through the top layer, out through the bottom layer, and repeat that. And then I'm going to just do this last one again so that I've got a nice straight bit of thread here. So I'm going to go in through the bottom and out through the top, in through the bottom, out through the top, and then I'm going to make that loop again to knot off my thread. So I'm going to go just take a little tiny bit of fabric there to make a loop. See that? There we are, make a loop. So you can see my loop is coming through here, and then I'm going to put my needle through the loop and I'm going to pull it to make my knot, and then I'm going to trim my thread like that, trim it off, and there we have another one of our hexagons done. So you need to repeat that for all 4 hexagons. So I've done one wing, one head or body, and then I've got another 2 to do. So I'm going to do those, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like, and then I will take you through the steps to do the triangle. So now I've got my 4 fabric hexagons attached to my paper hexagons. I'm going to do the triangle. This is just a bit more fiddly, just because it's a different shape. So you're going to do exactly the same again in terms of putting your fabric right side down, so the right side against your surface. Then you're going to get hold of your triangle and you're going to pop it in the centre. And you're going to start in the same way again by folding over one of your edges and then using your clip to hold it in place. Again, because I'm left-handed, I'm going to put it on the left-hand side here. If you're right-handed, you're going to want to pop it over here. And the steps are the same in terms of you're still going to use the tacking stitch, you're still going to turn it and fold it, but you need to do each corner twice because of the way that the fabric is going to sit when you fold it. So first of all, you're going to fold over this edge here. So fold it over and you'll see that you end up with this kind of sticky out bit. That's why we need to do it twice. I'll show you what I mean. So you're going to go in through the bottom layer and up through this top layer here, as we've already done on the hexagons, and you're going to pull it through, and you're going to do it another time exactly the same like that, and pull it through. Now you can deal with this when you're sewing them together. This step probably isn't strictly necessary, but this is how I do it. So now that I've got that secured, I fold this back and out of the way. And so I'm going to pinch it with my finger and my thumb, and then I'm going to do another 2 tacking stitches through all of the layers. So let me see if I can make this clear for you. So I'm going to pinch it here, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go in through the bottom and I'm going to come out through the top, and then I'm going to pull it all the way through like that. And then I'm going to do the same stitch again. Don't worry too much about having that little loop there. That's just a bit of the fabric which I'll snip off. And then we're going to go through again and pull it through. Okay, I think this is probably a little bit confusing having this stray end here, so let me just clip that off. It's just a bit of the raw edge of the fabric which has got involved. Okay, so that's one corner done. Then we're going to turn it, and we're going to do exactly the same again down here. So it's all folded nicely. We're going to fold that edge of your fabric back, and again you've got an overhang. So you're going to go as we did before, through the bottom and up through the top again. So through the bottom here and up through the top. See if I can get that to focus. There you go. So you're going to do one stitch and pull it so that this thread here is straight, and then you're going to do another one in the same place. So that's now secure. And then we're going to do as we did before. We're going to get this little overhangy bit here, and we're going to fold it back so that it's hidden. It's fiddly. It's not difficult, but it is fiddly, which probably makes it quite difficult. Then I'm going to go here in through the bottom and out through the top. And I'm going to do that twice. Okay, and because it's a triangle, we've only got to do one more now. So we've got this all folded nicely from the clip. We're going to fold that edge back. We've got our overhangy bit again. This time, because of the way it's folded, we're going to go through the top layer first and out through the bottom. So through the top and out through the bottom, and pull your needle and your thread through until it's straight. See what happens there if I pull it too tight? So you just want to make sure that it sits straight, okay? And then the same again, in through the top, out through the bottom, and pull. And then I'm going to turn it around to get rid of this overhang here, and I'm going to move it out of the way, and I'm going to go through the bottom and out through the top. Let me just move that thread out of the way. So we're going to go in through the bottom layer and out through the top layer, just making sure that you're only going through your fabric and not your papers. So in through the bottom and out through the top. Okay, it's hooked around the corner of the triangle there. And then we just need to secure this part. So I'm going to go through all of the layers now. So in through the bottom and out through the top, in through the bottom and out through the top. And now that we've done that, we can do a loop and a knot. So take a little bit of fabric here, like this, pull the needle through to give us a loop. And once we've got our loop, pop the needle through our loop and knot. And then we're going to get our scissors and we're going to just trim off that thread there. So now we have got all of our fabrics attached to all of our papers, and you can see that that is how they are going to go together. So well done. You've managed to do the first step. That is the most fiddly step, I would say. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start attaching all of these shapes together so that we end up with a complete Florence bee. I'm going to show you two different ways of attaching these together. One is slightly more invisible than the other, and I would say that one is slightly stronger than the other. So I'm going to show you those techniques now. Right, so let's have a look at attaching all of our fabric shapes together so that we end up with our Florence. I'm just going to move that out of the way for the moment. It's easier to start with the body and then attach the wings at the end. So let's attach the head to the body piece first. So I'm going to take those out of the way. First way that I'm going to show you how to do this is we are going to pop them right sides together. Now, if you've got a directional print, you might want to work out, you know, if you've got something like a flower growing up this way, for example, then you're going to want to make sure that that's going to be facing up or down if that's what you prefer. But we're going to pop these right sides together. And what we need to do is we need to line them up so that they are absolutely together. And I'm going to use my clip here again now. I'm just going to pop it. This time I'm left-handed, so I'm going to pop it on the right-hand side. If you're right-handed, you're going to want to pop it on the left-hand side. Just clips them together nicely for you. Okay, I'm using a single length of thread again, and I've just popped my triple knot in the bottom as we were doing when we were attaching the papers and the fabrics together. And then the first thing that I want to do is I want to secure my thread into my fabric. So I'm going to do that by going into, I'm going to call this one the front and I'm going to call this one the back, okay? So because the front one is facing me, I'm going to do that by just going into the very, very corner of my back fabric and coming through to my front in the very, very corner. So you're taking just a little bit of the thread, of the threads that make up your fabric as you go through, and we're going to just pull the needle through. Okay. Then we're going to repeat going from back to front, but we're going to wrap our thread around our needle as we do it. So I'm going to go a few millimeters across, maybe not quite 5 millimeters. I'm going to pop my needle through the back and through the front, making sure that you are only picking up strands of your fabric or fibers of your fabric, and you're not picking up any of the papers, okay? Once your needle is through, you're going to get your thread and you're going to take it underneath your needle. You're going to wrap it round, you're going to hold it over here, and then you're going to pull your needle through, and you're going to pull it really, really nice and tight. Then we're going to do the same thing again. That's the stitch that we're using. So we're going to move a couple of millimeters along again, and we're going to go from back to front. Once our needle is through, we're going to take our thread, we're going to wrap it round underneath our needle, over the top, keep hold of it here so it's nice and tight, and then we're going to pull through and pull it really, really tight. The tighter you pull it, the stronger your stitches will be and the more invisible they will be when you've finished. So then we're going to repeat exactly the same thing again, coming through from the back to the front, needle round, we're going to get our thread, we're going to take it underneath our needle, over the top, and we're going to pull our thread through and pull it nice and tight. I can see that my thread is about to escape there from my needle, so let's pull it back through. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on like this, and I will continue talking you through it as I do it. So back to front, thread, under, over, pull, and through. Once you've done this a few times, you do get into a really nice rhythm, and it becomes a really quick way of attaching these. This is a really nice strong stitch to use to attach your hexagons together. Just make sure that you keep pulling it tight after each stitch, and then as we get closer to the clip, I'll take the clip off. Okay. It's really important as you're doing this that you do start right at the corner here where we started, and that you finish right at the corner so that you don't end up with any gaps. This clip's in my way now, so I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm just going to use my hand to hold it together there. So again, I'm coming across and I'm going front to back, making sure that I'm not catching the paper, and then I'm going to wrap my thread underneath. I'm going to keep hold of it here, and I'm going to pull it through, and I've got a few more stitches to do. So back to front, I think I might have said front to back at one point, back to front, At least you can see what I'm doing. Do as I do, not as I say. I think actually is the saying, do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, you need to go from back to front, wrap the thread around the needle, pull it through, and then I've probably got 2 more stitches here, I reckon. So I've got 1 in there, wrap it round, hold it and pull it through. And then the last stitch is right in the corner again. So I'll pop it in and then I'll show you where the needle is. So right through the corner there, can you see? And then I'm going to wrap the thread around. I'm going to hold it there and I'm going to pull it through. And we need to finish this off with a knot now to make sure that the whole thing is nice and tight. So you're going to go through the corners again to give you your loop of thread, which is here. See if we can get that for you. There you go. And then you're going to pop your needle through your loop to make your knot. So get your needle, pull it through, and then there's your knot. And then we're going to snip that off, and I'll show you what it looks like now when it's finished. So on this side where we've done our stitching, you'll see that you've got a nice line here of your cotton thread where you wrapped your thread around your needle and pulled it nice and tight. And if I open that up for you, in fact that's her head, isn't it? If I open it up for you, you can see that your stitching is pretty invisible there. I mean, if I went really close, you can see it, but from a distance, you can't see it. So that's one way of attaching your hexagons together. To attach the triangle to the bottom, I'm going to show you another way of doing it. Okay, for this way of doing it, I'm using a double length of thread. So I've cut a length of thread, I've folded it in half, I've put the ends together, and then I've threaded both ends through the eye of my needle so that we end up with a loop at the bottom. The reason I'm using a double strand here is for strength, because this stitch isn't quite as strong as the one that we've just done. So sort of the same thing again, but you're going to think, oh, what's she doing here? This time we're going to put them wrong sides together. Okay, make sure that all your little bits and pieces of thread and ends of fabric are tucked down, and you're going to put them wrong sides together. Again, I'm going to use my clip to help me. Okay. This is the way that you would close up any sort of folded edge. So if ever you've made stuffed toys, or if you've done a bag lining or something like that, this is the stitch that you would use to close this. I call it a ladder stitch. I think some people might even call it a mattress stitch, but I call it a ladder stitch. So this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to show you what we've got here, because we've got the back. See if I can use my scissors to show you. We've got the back piece here, which is this. Then we've got this bit where we've folded over the edges of our fabric, and then we've got the front bit here. So everything that I'm doing, you need to make sure that you're only attaching the front and the back, and you're ignoring that little bit there, which the scissors are now covering. Okay, and now it's gone out of focus. So you're just using the front, which is the bit by my thumb here, and the back, which is the top bit. So the first thing we want to do is secure our thread into our fabric again, and because we've got a loop this time, we're going to use that loop to help us do that. So you're going to go right to the corners, and you want to make sure that you're getting right into the corner at the back and right into the corner at the front, ignoring the bit in the middle. Okay, this is a little bit more fiddly, but I just wanted to show you 2 different ways so that you can choose what you want to use. So pull it through, not all the way, just so that you've got the end of the loop, which is there. And then you can feed your needle through your loop and pull it, and that attaches it into the fabric. If ever you're sewing with a double length of thread, that's how you would secure it. What we're going to do now is we're going to use a ladder stitch. I'm just going to poke that folded bit down here out of the way. Okay, so we've got our front and our back. What we're essentially doing is we're going to create the rungs of a ladder here and here in these folds. And no, we're not. We're going to create the sides of the ladder in these folds, and we're going to create the rungs of the ladder going across between the two fabrics. Okay, so I'm going to start first of all, and I'm going to go into my back fabric, and where it's folded, I'm going to go along just a couple of millimeters, not quite 5 millimeters. So there we are. So I've moved my needle along there, and I'm going to pull my thread through. Okay, don't pull it too tight at this stage. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thread, and it's going to come across and be like the rung of a ladder. Okay, so I'm going to go directly across into the front folded part of my fabric, again just a few millimeters. So I'll show you what that looks like. Is that in focus? Yeah, I think it is. And then we're going to pull it through. Okay, don't pull it too tight at this point. Okay, so that's probably tight enough, and we're just going to continue like that, going backwards and forwards. So I'm going to go into the back of my fabric a couple of millimeters. What's important with this stitch, that clip's in the way, so I'm going to move it. What's important with this stitch is you need to make sure that you're going straight across as far as you possibly can. Okay, so then I'm going to come into the front fold again here of my fabric, just a few millimeters. Your stitches don't need to be particularly even. There we are, you can see where I've gone in there, and pull it through. And then we're going to go to the back, and we're going to do exactly the same again, and we're going to go all the way to the end. And I'm not pulling it tight as I'm going. You could if you wanted to. The reason I'm not is because I want you to see what happens at the end, because it's like magic. Okay, so I'm going to come across here like this. This is the stitch that I use to close up all the linings of my project bags. So if you are having a fairy bag from my shop, or if you have had any other bags which may or may not appear in my shop at some point in the future, then that's how they'll be closed up. I'm just going to get rid of that folded bit of fabric there again. Okay, that's me just clanking against a glass of water that I've got at the side of me, if you can hear the sound effects there. So I'm coming back into the back fold here and up. This is a bit more fiddly, and it does take a little bit longer because you do need to be a little bit more precise with this one. So it's just so that you've got a choice, and I'll show you the two different finishes. Apologies if this is blurring a little bit. I'm just trying to make sure that I can see where I'm going into the fabric, and then I will show you. There we are. So I come out again. Yeah, it's just so you've got a choice really. So if you're a slightly more advanced sewer, you might want to have a little go at this one. And it's also handy for you to know how to do this if you're closing up a folded seam. So I'm just going to go across to the end, and I've come up through the corner there, and I'm going to go back into the other corner here in the front. So I'll do that, and then I'll show you. Here we are. You see I've come out through the corner, and then now that I've got to the end, if I pull on this thread here, watch what happens. Pulling, all of the stitches disappear. Okay, I'm just going to secure this at the end to make sure that it is nice and flat and secure. So I'm just going to go through both corners again. I'll just put the needle in, and now I'm out of shot. I will show you now. There we go, in there. And I'm going to pull it through. So I've done one more stitch, and then I'm going to do my knot. Let's just pull that back through. There. So one more stitch I've done, and now I'm going to do my knot. So I've gone back in through the corners again, and I've got my loop now, and I'm going to put my needle through my loop, and I'm going to pull it, and it knots. So let me snip that for you, and I'll show you what that looks like on the other side. So if I turn that out, you cannot see the thread, your cotton, you can see that where I've knotted it off, but you cannot see any stitches at all that way. So your cotton, your thread is completely invisible. What you do see that way is if you look at it enough, you'll see a slight kind of wavy line where you've gone in and out between the two fabrics. So it's up to you really. You can have this one, which I would say is definitely a slightly easier and less fiddly version if you're a beginner. Or you can have this one if you fancy a bit more of a challenge and if you want something that is completely invisible. So it's entirely up to you which of the two methods you want to use. You can mix and match if you want to. If I show you on this finished sample here, then you'll see that here I've used the invisible stitch, and here I've used, no, I have used the invisible stitch. Have I used it all along? Yeah, I think I have actually. I've used the invisible stitch to do the whole thing on this one. So you can't see the cotton thread at all. And on this one, I've used the other stitch. So if you look closely, you can see the thread. But I mean, if you look at it from a distance, you can't see it anyway. So entirely up to you which method you want to use. Now I'm going to show you how to attach the wings, and I'm going to show you using the first method. So not the invisible method here, just for speed. So I've got my needle threaded up with my single length of thread again here. And there is the knot in the end of my thread. And now we're going to attach the wings. So we're going to work across and do it in one complete motion. If you are right-handed, you're going to start attaching this edge and work across here. I am left-handed, so I'm going to start at this edge and I'm going to work across here. So if you're left-handed, you need to line up those two hexes there, so wing with body, and if you're right-handed, you want to line it up wing with head. So I'm going to line it up wing with body. The important thing here is to make sure that the corners match absolutely, and I'm going to pop my clip in there just to keep it in place whilst I start off. So remember, we're going to call the body piece the back and the wing piece the front as I'm explaining this. And let's get my needle and thread. So I'm going to go right into the corners. I'll just pop that in there and then I'll move it back into shot for you, because this is the really precise bit. Here we go. So I'm in through the corners there and I'm going to pull it through. So I've gone back to front. Okay, so again, a couple of millimeters along. I'm going to go through the back. I'm going to come through to the front. And then I'm going to get my thread, I'm going to wrap it round underneath my needle, over the top, I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to pull it through, nice and tight. Okay, then I'm just going to repeat that all the way along until I get to the very corner of my bee, and move it like that, pull it through. A bit stuck there. Okay, that's it. Then I'm going to come back, I'm going to do the same thing again, back to front, and I'm going to wrap the needle, sorry, the thread underneath the needle, and I'm going to pull it through, thread back to front, and I'm going to wrap it around the needle and I'm going to pull it through. I keep having to move it out of shot to pop the needle in because of the setup that I've got here. Because I don't have a tripod, it is on my to purchase list. I actually have you propped, because I use my camera as a phone, I've actually got you propped on my daughter's painting easel. So the easel is on my dining room table. Well, it's my kitchen table, I don't have a dining room. It's on my dining table, and it's standing over this kind of area here where I'm working. And then you're hanging off the end of the bit that holds the paint pots. And because of that, it means I can't quite, I'm just going to take that clip out of the way, I can't quite get my arms in such a way that I can hold it and see precisely what I'm doing and be in shot. So that's why I keep showing you at the same time. As I say, a tripod is on my to purchase list, as is some better lighting. I'm in the kitchen again today. If you've watched my podcast before, you'll know that I do get a lot of light in the kitchen. But obviously, you know, if we had a little bit of better lighting, it might be better for you. So I've come back to the corner now, and I've also got my thread looped around my tail. So let's just get that back where it needs to be. So I think I'm probably going to do 2 more stitches here, if I show you whereabouts I am. So I'm going to do 1 between where I am and the corner there. I'm going to wrap my thread around the bottom of my needle and pull it through, and then I'm going to go into the corners. So I will do that, see if I can do it in shot for you, can I? Okay, in there, and then I'm going to wrap my thread underneath my needle like that, hold it over here and pull it through. Okay, so I've gone right into the corner. So this edge here is now attached. Now what I need to do is attach it to the other side. So I'm going to open it out first of all, so you can see we've now stitched it there. Then I'm going to fold it back. So what you're going to be doing here is you are going to be folding your body piece, but don't worry about that because you can give it a good press at the end. Okay, so make sure that your corners match up and pop your clip in place again, just to hold everything together. Now again, because it's important that the corners are together so you don't end up with a gap, we're going to go right into the corners of the, now the head piece is the back and the wing piece is the front. Let me just pull that thread through the eye of my needle. So again, I'm going to go right into the corners. So let's move that back right into the corners. If you don't get right into the corners with your first stitch, you are going to end up with a gap. So I've put my needle through and I'm going to wrap it around my thread, around my needle. I'm going to hold my thread over here and I'm going to pull it through, and the needle's come unthreaded. Lovely. There we are. We'll get there in the end. Let's rethread the needle and you can see me carrying on to the other end of the wing. Once you get a bit more confident with your English paper piecing, I think it's really lovely to just have a play about with shapes. If you go online, you can get lots of templates for different shapes that you can try and put together. I mean, obviously I'm a primary school teacher and we, as part of our training, you know, we're taught how to teach maths. And it's basically, it's tessellation. So that's, you know, something that we would quite often do in the classroom with children playing around, even very small children. They have that clicky stuff. There's like the little plastic shapes that clip together to make lots of different things out of. I can't remember what that's called now. If anybody knows, leave a comment in the box below. So, you know, this is something that is done in schools. It's all kind of about an awareness of shape and things. So you could get your kids involved actually, and you could get them to make a nice pattern, nice pretty shapes, and then you could sew them together and you could make some motifs to put onto a quilt, or you could make blankets, or you could make placemats, anything you like really. So involve the whole family if you want to. I'm just going to move that clip out of the way and carry on. So back to front, and then wrap your thread around your needle and pull it through. Back to front, wrap your thread around your needle, pull it through. Back to front, wrap your thread around your needle, pull it through. I'll be saying this in my sleep, won't back to front, thread around your needle, pull it through. But that's basically what you're doing. Okay. Back to front, thread around needle, pull it through. And then we're back at the corner. So I'm going to go right into the corners again. Here. Wrap my thread around my needle and pull it through. And then I need to knot everything off. So I'm going to do my loop. I'm going to go right into the corners. I'm going to pull my thread through until I get my loop. There's my loop. I'm going to pop my needle through my loop and I'm going to pull it tight. And then I'm going to snip my thread and show you what it looks like. So snip that off and open her out. And can you see, because we've gone into the corners when we ended here and started here, so we've effectively gone into this corner twice when joining, we've got no gap there. So now you just want to repeat that for the other wing. I'm not going to do that with you because of time. And what actually I might do is I might split this into 2 videos anyway, see how long they are, because it's just easier from an uploading point of view. So attach the other wing, I'll go and do that, and then we'll see what the next step is. Actually, what I will just mention is the whole left hand, right hand thing. So we've done that one, and I started off with the body here. So when you come to do the other side, if you're left-handed, you're going to want to start attaching wing to head. And if you're right-handed, you're going to want to start attaching wing to body. Just a point worth making. So I'm going to stitch this now. I'm not going to talk to you whilst I do it. I'll speed it up. Okay, so there you have, you're slightly bent out of shape, but you have your completed Florence B. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to upload this as part 1 of the tutorial, the piecing together of your B, and then I'm going to upload the rest of the tutorial as part 2, appliquing your B onto your backing fabric and adding your embroidery stitches. It just means that it will upload a lot easier onto YouTube, and that you can perhaps go away and take a break and come back. I will upload them kind of back to back, so you won't have to wait days in between for each one, but that's what I'm going to do now. So I will see you in part 2.